If you ask anyone who's been using an intermittent catheter, or IC, for a while, they'll probably tell you there was at least a thing or two about doing intermittent catheterization they learned the hard way. Either because they didn't know enough about self-catheterization, or because of all the myths and misconceptions. The good news is, we've recruited some experts to share their insights with you here. People with lots of lived experience and a healthcare professional who supports people who are self-catheterizing. So let's join our real-world experts out in the real world to learn about some myths and misconceptions and some great facts too. Myth number 1. If you can pee without using a catheter, you don't need to do an IC.
If you can void by yourself, it means that catheterization isn't necessary. While being able to void by yourself, it is a good sign that the bladder is able to contract. However, many people cannot empty their bladder completely, and any urines left in the bladder can lead to infections. I learned that the hard way a few years ago when I had a kidney infection. Even though you can void, it does not universally mean that catheterization isn't necessary.
Myth number 2. Women can't use male catheters.
Women can't use male catheters. That's a myth. I use what's called a male catheter because it's longer. I have an easier time catheterizing with a long catheter while sitting up, which means it's easier for me to catheterize and use the washroom while I'm out. Did you know manufacturers are moving away from branding catheters male and female catheters and instead using the length as a descriptor? I use a 16-inch catheter. If you have more questions, remember to speak with a healthcare provider when you are making or changing decisions around your catheter use.
Myth number 3. Using an intermittent catheter will lead to incontinence.
Catheterization can lead to incontinence. This is a myth. Some people have what's called a high-pressure bladder, where their bladder will leak when it reaches a certain pressure when it fills to a certain volume. But everyone's volume is different. There are medications you can talk to your healthcare team about which can help reduce this pressure and prevent leaking. Some people also find that when they have a urinary tract infection, a UTI, they will start leaking, but not everyone experiences this symptom.
Myth number 4. Using an intermittent catheter will cause urinary tract infections, or UTIs, in women.
Using an intermittent catheter will cause urinary tract infections in women. Yes and no. Using catheters does increase your risk for UTIs, but there are things you can do to reduce this risk, like washing your hands before you catheterize, using clean supplies, and emptying your bladder regularly. We do want you to monitor for UTIs and talk to your healthcare team when you're concerned, but we only want you using antibiotics to treat a UTI if you have tested positive for bacteria in the urine, if you have a symptom of a UTI, and if you have a temperature greater than 37.6.
Myth number 5. If you push the catheter in as far as it will get all the pee out.
There's a myth out there that if you have to do an IC, you're to insert the full length of a catheter in order to fully drain your bladder. That's an absolute myth. Once you're using a catheter to do an IC, you insert it until the urine starts to flow, at which point you've hit the jackpot. Allow the flow to continue until it stops, remove your catheter, and you're good to go.
Myth number 6. The only way to do an IC is with your clothes off, lying down in a bed.
The only right way for a female to do an intermittent catheterization is lying on her bed with her pants off. No way. That definitely is a myth. You do not need to be lying on your bed. You could be sitting on the toilet, sitting on a commode, or you could stay in your wheelchair. The question you need to ask yourself is, how am I going to get the access to my pubic area to cleanse and to insert a catheter? For some people, that means they take their pants right down to their ankle. Some people just take one leg out of their pants. Or you could put a zipper in to make the whole access question easier. There is really no one right way to do this. It's a matter of trial and error, what your physical abilities are, and what your comfort level is for your lifestyle. And let's face it, you're not going to have a lifestyle if you need to go home every time you need to use the bathroom.
Myth number 7. ICs are painful. Even if I don't have sensation, it must be hurting me.
ICs are painful, and even if I don't have sensation, it must be hurting me, right? Doing an IC might be a little uncomfortable or feel strange, but it shouldn't be painful if done using the proper technique. This includes using the right size catheter, taking it slowly, making sure the catheter is well lubricated, and becoming familiar with your own anatomy. Check out our first video in the series to help with that. If you have any questions, your healthcare team can help troubleshoot your technique for maximum comfort.
Myth number 8. You cannot do an IC when you're on your period.
You can't use an IC when you're on your period. That's a myth. Catheter use during menstruation is safe and no major changes or techniques are needed. Just make sure you pay extra attention to cleaning the urethral area before catheter insertion to avoid introducing bacteria into the bladder. Use a pad, tampon, another period product, and incontinence brief as needed. Inserting the catheter slowly and gently is always important. You can take extra precautions during your period as you might feel more sensitive.
Myth number 9. If I have to do an IC, my life is ruined.
There's a myth out there that having to do ICs will ruin your life. I'm here to bust that myth and tell you that learning to do an IC was a blessing for me. It allowed me to be able to maintain and have my full independence to be able to go and do and see the things I wanted to go and see and do. It's a blessing in your life.
Myth number 10. Everybody's experience self-catheterizing will be exactly the same.
There is only one way to do a self-catheterization, and you will do it the same way as everyone else. That is so not true. It's all going to depend on your physical ability, your hand dexterity, and where your location is. Are you at home, on your bed, in your bathroom, or maybe it's in a public washroom? If you watch the video series, you will see that everyone has slightly different anatomy, and there are lots of different methods that people have developed. Remember, if you are newly injured, you will change and evolve.
In this video, we've tackled some common myths and misconceptions about catheterization. We wanted you to know, if done properly, using a catheter does not have to be an uncomfortable, messy, or limiting experience for people with female genitalia. Bottom line, learning to properly self-catheterize can help support you in enjoying an active and social lifestyle. Remember though, using proper techniques for clean catheterization is the key to a problem-free experience. Finally, always keep in mind that catheterization can be done in various positions and locations. Work with your healthcare team to learn more about that, and be sure to watch the catheter insertion techniques videos in this series.